New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Well, of course, we have to talk about the big elections. Lots to opine about there. But first, let me mention a couple things before the news gets too moldy. Well, maybe it already is. The weird Halloween party at Mar-a-Lago. We didn't talk about that last time we were together. If you didn't see the footage, if you didn't see the video, my God, you really should go back and check it out. Pretty just disgusting. And I don't have too much to say about it that's not obvious, except that we now understand there's just one more piece of literature that he obviously doesn't understand. The Great Gatsby. He thinks, and his people think, whoever decided to put this together, that a Great Gatsby theme would be good. So it's getting hilarious. So either they have no idea what the Great Gatsby is about, that it's a warning about these horrible, misguided people who put all of their efforts and their identity into their wealth and treating other people like crap. Either they don't understand that, or even worse, they do understand it. And they like it. That's how they fancy themselves. I'm honestly not sure which is true. I think maybe it's the latter. Maybe they really do understand. And this is just the latest. The Miller-Vogt regime has oftentimes made references to Star Wars in exactly the same circumstance. They don't seem to get that the Empire was the bad guys. Or maybe they do, because they fancy themselves the stormtroopers. You've seen the memes and the posts by, I think, Miller himself, others in the regime. What do you think? Do you think they don't understand? They don't get it? And that's why they cast themselves as the villains in these stories? Or do you think they do get it? And also the reason they cast themselves as villains. We always say around here, you've heard me say it 100 times, the evil and the dumb. And it's really almost impossible to distinguish between the two. So they don't understand The Great Gatsby, or they do. They don't understand Star Wars, or they do. The Orange Meat Puppet has said several times that Les Miserables is his favorite musical. He loves Les Mis. And doesn't understand what that's about the power of the poor downtrodden against the evil empire, against the autocratic regime of its time. Yeah, what is it about these people? So they don't get Star Wars, Les Mis, now The Great Gatsby. I mean, what's next? Are they going to start sharing Grapes of Wrath memes? Not understanding the meaning of Grapes of Wrath? Is that next? Lord, these people. My God, these people. Okay, let's talk about the election. It was fun to watch. It was very entertaining. Of course, I had 3 or 4 different feeds going when I was bouncing around. Of course, it was a clean sweep for the non-MAGA electorate. Lots of races in especially New Jersey and Virginia, because they had the high-profile governor's races, attorney generals, lieutenant governors, assembly members. Clean sweep, clean sweep, clean sweep for the non-MAGA. California, of course, with Prop 50, which passed by a mile. Pennsylvania Supreme Court. 3 seats of the 5 were up and could have swung the highest court in Pennsylvania, a major swing state, could have swung it to the conservative side, but nope, they held on to all 3 liberal seats. So that's great. Georgia had a couple of statewide seats that went blue, mayors in Cincinnati and Detroit, elsewhere. Voters in Maine rejected a voter suppression law, very good. Also passed a red flag law regarding gun safety, very good. Colorado had propositions on their ballot regarding school meals, which they passed, and funding those programs would require taxing higher earners. Very good. So just everywhere, everywhere, clean sweep across the country, except Texas. Oh my God, Texas is so weird. They had like 17 different propositions on the ballot. Most of them were about reducing taxes. They're just, I don't know what's going on in Texas. That's a whole nother country. Texas is a whole nother country. All right, so here's what I need to tell you. Here's what I need to say about Tuesday's election. MAGA, the Miller-Volk regime, and the orange meat puppet are so incredibly repugnant that I was not surprised by the results here. I was happy, but not surprised. Democrats across the board. Now, in a better world, we'd have lots of Greens and independents and democratic socialists and social anarchists. We'd have all sorts of different people winning, not the capital D Democratic Party. But in this time we live in, I'm very happy to be in a coalition with the rest of the non-MAGA folks. Nobody's harder on capital D Democrats than I am. But I'm happy to be in a coalition that includes them when it comes to defeating MAGA. So let's be real clear about where we are today. I caution you against getting all excited about the Democratic Party again. I mean, come on. How many times can you do Lucy in the football? Sure, be happy. When a baseball team wins the pennant, they celebrate. Fine. They spray champagne all over each other. But they're still in the playoffs. They still have wins. That's what happens in the playoffs. You celebrate your win, and then you get back to work. You don't just lay back and say, well, we did that. Okay, so that's where we are today. Go ahead, celebrate, feel good. I did. I felt good Tuesday night. I feel good today. So don't be satisfied. The real story here is not that MAGA was defeated. The real story is that the Democratic Socialist Mamdani defeated the establishment Democrats. He defeated Schumer. He defeated Cuomo. That's the story. And I'm really getting just so tired of hearing that New York City is somehow different. Oh, well, sure, he could win in New York, but he couldn't win in the heartland. You can't run that kind of a candidate. You know, this othering of cities, I'm so sick of. And I'm talking to you, Democrats. I'm talking to the leadership. I'm talking to the rank and file. I'm talking to you if you feel this way. Stop feeling this way. Stop being afraid of cities and people who live in cities. This fear of cities thing is so stupid. You hear it all the time about New York City when it comes to national politics. I hear it all the time about Milwaukee. Oh, you live in Milwaukee? How could you live in the cities? Isn't it dangerous? Aren't people weird? Yeah, get over the fear of cities. It's dumb. Everyone in America is an immigrant, not just people in cities. We're all immigrants. We're all working class. The great, vast majority of Americans are immigrants and working class. The coalition that brought victory for Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race. We're all immigrants. We're all working class. When you say that this wouldn't work in the heartland of America, what you're really saying is that heartland Americans are too white. You're saying that people in the heartland, like places I grew up down in Walworth County in Wisconsin, and name any other of hundreds of counties across the U.S. What you're really saying is that, oh, no, those people are racists. They're backwards. They're homophobic. They're Islamophobic. They're misogynist. No, the heartland, we have to worry about those votes. They'll never elect a person of color. They'll never elect a Muslim. They'll never elect a gay or trans person. They're not ready. They're not even ready to elect a woman. That's what you're saying about most Americans. I'm not saying it. You're saying it. That they can't understand their own interests. No. Stop with this ridiculous idea that what's right for New York is not right for the heartland. We're all Americans. We're all smart. We can vote in our own interests. We can vote even in each other's interests. Yeah, we're not all selfish. We're not all self-centered. We have empathy. We understand community. All of us. Well, enough of us, put it that way. Yeah, there are dumb people, there are stupid people, there are mean people. Of course there are. But when you paint with this wide brush, assuming that no one in the heartland understands their own interests and that they're all bigots, that's on you. That's not on me. You got to stop selling the heartland short. Stop selling the country short. Stop selling voters short. I mean, it's my side. I am the urban city dweller, highly educated, liberal elite. I'm the socialist. I'm the anarchist. I'm the one that's supposed to be out of touch, right? That's me. No. Because I'm not dismissing the heartland. I'm not calling them dumb and bigoted. You are. Every time you say, well, they're not ready, we have to give them a centrist. So what do? And by you, please don't take offense. I'm using the collective you, meaning establishment, capital D Democrats who insist on going centrist and who insist that New York City is somehow different. That's what I'm talking about. That's the you I'm talking to right now. So what do? You offer watered down centrist policy, not too offensive, for fear of turning away your voters. It's you who don't understand your own voters. It's not me. I'm not accusing them. You are. Or more importantly, you don't trust them. You don't trust your own voters. Or, I realize this as I'm speaking, maybe you do understand your own voters and you're afraid of them. Because if you give them a chance to lead, well, maybe they'll just do it. Maybe they'll, if you really give them a chance to vote actually for their interests, they might just do it and you're out of a job. Now the you I'm talking to are the establishment Democrats in office. Trust your voters, please. Trust the people. And if you're afraid of your own voters, you know what? Go find another job. Go get a job in the real world. Go work at a bakery or dig ditches or work in a data center. I don't care what you do. Get out of politics if you're afraid of your own voters. Just get out. You're not a public servant. You're certainly not a leader. Just get out. Thank you. Yeah, the people will lead if you just give them a chance, if you give them options. And right now, we have what you and I have been discussing for a while, this terrific populist alliance. Zoran Mamdani in New York got 9% of the Trump 2024 voters in New York City. Did you hear that? 9% of the people who voted for Donald Trump in 2024, New Yorkers, turned around and voted for Zoran Mamdani. That's the populist alliance. 9% is huge, is absolutely massive when you look at margins of victory. You look at what you need to win an election. 9% is astronomical. Zoran Mamdani won 9% of 2024 Trump voters. Lord Almighty, you guys. Follow the populist alliance. All right, let's talk about Zoran Mamdani for a little bit. You want to go back if you haven't heard it. Even if you have, you want to see it again. The greatest, okay, I don't want to sound too hyped up about this, but I think I can honestly say the best political speech I've heard in my life. I mean, I can't think of any better. Jesse Jackson made a couple of really great speeches at the Democratic conventions of 84 and 88. I honestly can't think of a better speech. Barack Obama's made a couple of good speeches, but, you know, he's Barack Obama. Yeah, this was fantastic. He opened by quoting Eugene Debs, for God's sakes. Oh my God. Yeah. A bunch of people going to their favorite AI Google saying, who's Eugene Debs? My favorite quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm young, I'm Muslim, and I'm a democratic socialist, and I don't apologize for any of these things. What a great quote. Oh, they roared. Zoran Mamdani, man. Economic progressive populism. It's where the voters are. It's just where they are. Now, just a quick reminder here. I am not totally aligned with democratic socialists because I'm a social anarchist. They still rely way too much on money and on jobs. And I think they're wrong about that, the democratic socialists. Are they better than the neoliberal Democrats? Are they better than the fascist Republicans? Of course, by 1,000 miles. I'm very, very happy with the democratic socialists as represented by Zoran, Bernie, and AOC. But just a quick reminder, around here, this reliance on job growth, on economic growth, no, growth should be negative. We should be retracting, not expanding. Everybody shouldn't have a job. It's ridiculous to think that everybody should have a job. That's not the future. The future is universal basic income. The future is AI and robotics doing all the dumb work. The future is us being more human. And, okay, all right, you can't, maybe I'm ahead of my time. People will be talking about this later. They're not talking about it now. But where I disagree with Mamdani is this whole free childcare. Now, you might be surprised to hear that, but you know what? I think parents should raise their kids. You don't stick your kid in daycare for 8-10 hours a day while you and your partner both work. That's very 20th century. That's old-time thinking. No. Parents should raise their own kids. A couple of parents should have extremely part-time jobs that support a family, because that's where we are now. Work maybe 10 hours a week, and that job should support a family. If you take all the money generated in this country and distribute it equally, nobody has to work more than a few hours a week. And especially as AI and robotics take over all the mundane jobs, nobody has to go to these dopey jobs anymore. The future is now, and the actual future is right around the corner. And the idea of everybody working full-time jobs is just ridiculous. We have to embrace the future. We have to embrace universal basic income. And this will allow parents to raise their own children and to be active in the community, in your neighborhood. The whole "it takes a village" thing is still as true as it ever was, but lost to a generation. Yeah, when we're not reliant on this fictional overlord called the economy, when we're not reliant on these bullshit jobs, as David Graeber called them, yeah, we'll work a fraction of the hours we work today. Mothers and fathers can raise their own children. Extended families and neighbors can be part of that raising of the children. Yeah, the current model is just so incredibly anachronistic and wrong, where everybody is expected to work 40 hours and you have to put your kids in full-time daycare. That's just crazy. It's a terrible, terrible system that we have to just destroy. So that's the one thing I don't agree. That's where I part ways with Zoran Mamdani. Socialists and democratic socialists are still married to this idea of people having jobs and of the economy growing. Oof, no, I'm way past that. So as much as I love the guy, and again, by order of magnitude, just exponentially better than the Democrats, and not even in the same universe as the fascists. So I celebrate his win, don't get me wrong. Just have to keep things real here. Okay, Prop 50 in California. I don't have too much to say about that. I'm glad it won. You know me, I'm all about small d democracy, so the idea that they had to do it is sad. I wish they didn't have to do it, but they had to do it. The Republicans in Texas stole 5 seats to hand over to MAGA. So California had no choice. They had to do it, and the voters did the right thing. They stole 5 Democratic seats to even out the playing field again. Now, other Republican states are threatening to do the same thing. They're in various stages of doing it as we speak. I got an email, maybe you got the same email, from Gavin Newsom, California governor. Here in California, we passed Prop 50 by an overwhelming margin with a historic turnout. And I want to thank all of you who worked so hard to make this victory possible. Well, very good. He goes on, now we need Virginia, we need Maryland, we need our friends in New York and Illinois and Colorado. We need to see other states meet this moment head on as well. If you make your voice heard, I believe they will act. So he's got a petition he'd like you to sign. And I agree. You know how I feel about Gavin Newsom. I think he's kind of a tool. I think he's an establishment Democrat. I think he's ambitious enough to pretend he's a populist. So we won't go back into that whole thing. You and I talk about that all the time. So, yeah, Prop 50, they had to do it. If we get the world back on its legs where it makes sense, there will be free and fair elections, and everybody can make their choice within those free and fair elections. Gerrymandering has to go. It has to be a nationwide law. Congress has to pass it. Can't be state by state. So hopefully we'll get to that at some point. We have to talk about the response. God, Stephen Miller, the co-dictator Stephen Miller, along with Russell Vogt of the Miller-Vogt regime, had a chilling post immediately following the victory of Zoran Mamdani, where he cited statistics that almost 50% of New Yorkers live in family households with at least one immigrant. Over 1 million children, equaling 62% of all children in New York City, live in a household with at least one foreign-born family member. 80% of these children are U.S.-born citizens. Mixed status households demonstrate that all New Yorkers are impacted by federal policies that separate families. Be a shame if anything happened to your family there. Just blatantly threatening children and families of New York City because he doesn't like the outcome of an election. This is an overt threat to tear families apart. This is a horrible, dark, twisted person. The orange meat puppet wasn't much better. Threats to send troops to New York City or to withhold millions of dollars of federal funds. This was all before voting took place. Of course, those kinds of threats that are conditional on election results that he favors, well, of course, that's illegal. Just add that to the list of impeachable offenses. It's not just wrong or distasteful, it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. You can't tamper with elections by threatening to withhold funds or to send military troops to an American city. This is illegal 100 different ways. It violates separation of powers. It violates 100 different statutes governing the use of appropriated funds. This is raw, naked, political coercion. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. By the way, Alina Habba, one of the regime's legal goons, was also making preemptive threats. The orange meat puppet's response immediately following election results were for voter reform, quote unquote, voter reform, yelling at Republicans to end the filibuster and with their 51 votes in the Senate and their 2 or 3 vote advantage in the House to ram through so-called voter reform. And we all know what that looks like. We've been warning about that for quite a while. Now, the good news, it hasn't worked yet. Even with their greatest efforts, and according to the orange meat puppet, those efforts weren't good enough so far. They got to keep on it. But yeah, in this off-year election of 2025, it appears that we still have free and fair elections. That's the good news. Of course, the regime will say it's all rigged, and they have said that, of course. But the whole point is that they want rigged elections. Every accusation is a confession. We know this. It's become somewhat trite to say it at this point. But we have to stay on this. We have to keep our eyes on the real dangers here. We have an entire year to the midterms. So here's what we have to do. The Democrats who were just elected, we have to absolutely keep the pressure on them. We have to push them to govern, and we have to push them toward economic progressive populism. These centrist governors just elected in Virginia and New Jersey have to be pushed every day because they're going to fall into their old Lucy and Charlie Brown and the football governing of being reasonable and centrist, and the Overton window continues to shift to the right, and you know the whole story. So we have to push the Democrats who just won this week. We have to push them. MAGA is going to try like hell. They're going to try like hell to rig the 2026 midterms. They already tried to intimidate people at the polls. They literally sent troops to polling places. They have an entire year to plan and implement their dirty tricks. Intimidation at the polls. The purging of voters. They're always going after voter information, voting rolls. They got all the AI and the Palantir and all that techno-fascist hardware and software now to make that job easier. Speaking of the techno-fascists and AI, the Russian bots, the Chinese bots, and all the people aligned with that now have new tools. You know, it's starting to sound pretty old-fashioned, the tricks of 2016 and 2020, when there was all this misinformation and disinformation on social media, at the time Facebook. Now it's everywhere. The Russian and Chinese misinformation and disinformation is in full flower. Attempts at gerrymandering, which we've already talked about. The Miller Vogt regime is always trying to get their hands on voting machines. There are dozens of lawsuits working their way through the court system right now on who has access to these machines, access to voter rolls, access to information. Voter intimidation is a huge part of their game. It already has been, and it will only grow. 26, you're going to see it in spades. Dozens of voter suppression laws, like the one just rejected by the voters in Maine. Thank you. But that's central to their strategy to make voting more and more and more difficult. Voter suppression laws, already passed, still being considered, still being proposed. So we have a full year where we have to remain vigilant. Feel good about what happened, but oh my God, they have a full year to make the 26 midterms basically disappear. Everybody still goes to vote, but now we're living in Putin's Russia or Orban's Hungary, and that election means nothing. Those votes mean nothing because it's all rigged ahead of time. It didn't happen this time. That's the great news. We have to work like hell to make sure it doesn't happen a year from now. All right, let's bring this program to a close, as always, by reminding you that this and all episodes can be heard at the website charlesburcell.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Blue Sky and Substack. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. All right, there it is. I love you. See you out there.